is Kayla Ashworth. I'm 22 years old, born and raised in Houston, Texas. I'm an IFBB bikini pro, and this is my story. So I had always grown up around sports and fitness and everything. My dad was super into weight training. He had a garage gym set up for me. I kind of hit the weights from the start, and I think that's really helped me get where I am today as far as, muscle mass and maturity, rather than having a later start to resistance training. As I got older and got more into training in the gym, playing club volleyball, school volleyball, just all of it together, I kind of realized that I thrived in the weight room way more than I did on the court. I was the one weird person that was excited for off season and excited to go run sprints on the track. I would take our off season workouts and go do them on the weekends. I remember during the summers when, you have no responsibility in high school, me and my friend would get up and go to the gym for 2, 3, 4 hours just until we were so hungry, wake up the next day and do it again. Decided I did want to play in college, and I ended up getting a D2 scholarship to Texas A&M Kingsville, where I went and played for a year. And then again, I just kind of realized that I loved the sport, but I loved weight training and resistance training and working out way more. And I remember in my end of the season meeting, my coach was like, Kayla, just because you can squat more isn't going to make you a better player. At that point, I kind of realized I wasn't training for volleyball, I was training for myself, and because I loved it, I just had no desire to get better on the court. It was kind of time for me to set that aside and pursue my real passion. So growing up and kind of just all throughout high school, people always told me that I should compete and I had the physique for it and I should give it a try, but I knew nothing about the fitness world. I knew nothing about the bodybuilding world. I was kind of in a bubble. I just trained because I enjoyed it. My programs were a mix of things I would write for myself, ones I would follow on Instagram, ones my dad would write me that I would get from the school. Once I quit volleyball, I was like, okay, well, I might as well, give myself a goal in bodybuilding, try this out. I've always wanted to, and now I have the time. I met a figure competitor at the rec center back at A&M Kingsville, exchanged numbers with her, kind of asked her about competing and what all it entailed, and she told me, whenever you're ready, just reach out and we'll get going. Once I transferred over to Texas State, I had the freedom and the free time. I was ready, to give it a shot, but I wanted to go figure. I did not want to do bikini. Every video I watched and on YouTube and all the girls I saw on Instagram, they didn't look very muscular to me, and the figure girls were so much more appealing. That's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be big and strong, and I actually had Olivia Gravengard as my screensaver at the time. And if y'all know Olivia Gravengard, she's like 4 times my size when she's lean, but I was so naive. I had never cut down, so I had no idea. That was what I was shooting for. Little did I know, when you get lean, you don't have the mass you thought you had before. The beginning of 2020 was when I decided to start prep, and obviously I didn't know COVID was about to hit. So we got started, and I ended up having my show get pushed back due to COVID and didn't compete until August. At that point, my relationship with food was really good. I did not track throughout high school at all. Once I got into college, my boyfriend at the time, he was really into tracking, kind of showed me a few things. But my goal was always to bulk. I would come home and eat bowls of cereal and go step on the scale because I wanted to hit 160 so bad. I literally just wanted to be big. I was so happy with the way I was eating. The only restriction I really had was I wouldn't let myself eat out during the week, and then the weekends I would just have free reign, and that kind of kept a good 80-20 balance. I never thought of food as a number. I cooked, I meal prepped, but again, I was just doing it because I felt good and I loved the way I looked. I had never cut down before either. To me, my 155 was fit. Everyone always told me I looked fit. I always looked in the mirror and thought I was fit, but that's all I ever knew. So as soon as prep started, I was automatically put on a meal plan. I didn't have the option of tracking macros, and at that point I didn't really have a good grasp on macros or food sources or anything like that, so I was fine with the meal plan. To me, I was so naive and ignorant to the sport that I just followed whatever she told me. I was given a meal plan and I was just gonna follow it to the T. I remember it changing maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the span of my prep. And after it got pushed back with COVID, my actual prep was probably about 10 to 12 weeks. So again, 10 to 12 weeks on this meal plan that included like your basics, tilapia, rice cakes, oatmeal, egg whites, just typical bodybuilder food. I clearly wasn't used to that, so to me it was just like a huge shock. And I also didn't know the calories that were involved in that. I never added them up until the very end, when I realized I had been on like 1,200 calories for weeks at a time. I don't remember doing any cardio. I'm sure I did. I remember like a few HIIT sessions, but as far as like steady state, I remember going to the track and running like 100-yard sprints. I would run like 20 100-yard sprints a few times a week and stuff like that, but everything was pretty smooth. And to me, when you're doing your first show, like, you're so dedicated and determined that you don't even care about the hunger, and you don't know what it's supposed to feel like. So you're just going for it. You're all in. And I think the most I overate was like, I would have a few extra rice cakes at night with peanut butter. Little did I know, like, 1 spoonful of peanut butter is 30 grams of fat. So I'm not sure what my body fat percentage was by the end of it. I think I remember it being like 9%, but I lost like 25 pounds in 10 to 12 weeks. For those of you that know, like, you want to lose weight at a very slow rate. You want to preserve as much muscle mass as possible, and I just dropped weight like that because we were planning for a show and I needed to lose it. Again, I had nothing to compare to, so to me, I was so lean I thought I was gonna die, but I was nowhere near death or starvation, but it was pretty brutal. I ended up placing 3rd in my novice class and 4th in my open, and again, I thought I was so big until I stepped backstage and I just felt like a little shrimp. I was like, I don't even want to go up there after this is so bad, but after first call outs and everything, I was backstage like eating my brownie before finals. I know it's really bad, but I was so hungry and over it at that point. I actually hated show day. I wanted to eat. I was starving. So the next day, I basically was just prepared to go into off season. I had no future show in mind. I was proud of myself for getting there, but I was so ready for it to be done. After that show, I immediately, went into my off season. I was ready to bulk. I realized how much mass I needed to put on. That's kind of when the post-show blues hit me, which I knew nothing about, didn't know what was happening, but all I could think about was food. Like, I was just obsessed. It was taking over my mind, and that's kind of when the binge eating started. So I remember for the first like 20 days maybe, I was eating about 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. Ben and Jerry's for breakfast, boxes of donuts. I remember one night I was doing really well, and then I ordered a 20-inch like New York style pizza, box of like cinnamon sticks, for those of you in San Marcos and you know what Gumby's is, you know what I'm talking about. But I ate as much as I could until I was so sick that I physically like could not fit any more pizza in me. And I went to bed, but in bed I'm just thinking, when am I gonna get hungry again so I could eat more food? Like, it was bringing me to tears because of how frustrated I was that my mind was just obsessed and fixated on this one thing. So I woke up the next morning and literally finished the pizza. I went, like, it's like 9 a.m. and I finished the pizza and cinnamon sticks, and I'm on my floor crying and calling my mom, and no one really understood what was going on because they hadn't been through it. And again, I didn't have a reverse diet or anything set up. Things like this would keep happening. I despised the gym. I never wanted to go work out again. I would bawl my eyes out in the parking lot and like force myself to go at least walk or something. I actually stopped going for like a whole week, and I would just walk outside because mentally I was so messed up, and I just had no idea why I was obsessing over food so much. It was the most frustrating thing ever. One day I went to the gym with a friend, and her friend was an IFBB bikini pro, and she was like, there's a show coming to San Marcos in 2.5 weeks, like, you should prep for it. And at that point I had been binging for 20 days, like 5,000-6,000 calories. But I was like, you know what, maybe this will give me like another goal and reel me back in. So I was like, sure, let's do it. And in those 2.5 weeks, I went back down. At the very end, I was at like 900 calories because we were just trying to pull me back in. And I was so soft. I was absolutely starving. I was drinking like liquid protein. It was probably the worst thing I could have done. But there ended up being 2 girls in my class, and so I automatically qualified for nationals. Placed first out of the 2, so I did a lot better in that division, but after that, I kind of knew what was coming as far as the food goes and my mindset, so I was able to prepare myself a little better. Plus I had my coach who was on prep at the time, and she worked out with me and kind of kept me on track as well. Going into that kind of off-season phase of, again, I don't have a show in mind. I did these past 2 shows and now I'm just in a terrible mental and physical headspace. So basically from that show my bikini show was in October of 2020, and then February 2021 was when I started to kind of really get the hang of macros and start to track again. So in that time span, it was just constant binging, constant body dysmorphia. I'm talking like cans of biscuits with Whataburger honey butter sauce. I would just have as like a late night snack, and it's 1,600 calories like it was nothing. But before competing, again, I was eating like triple meat Whataburgers every night and feeling fine the next morning. I didn't know any different. So this really messed up my basically portrayal of food and just my body. At that point, I didn't really know any difference on the scale. I wasn't weighing it every day. My old coaches didn't really have me weigh in. They went off pictures. So that wasn't a huge deal, but I decided, I want to do a show, but I want to track my macros and see if I can go about it a different way. I decided I did want to compete again, but if it was going to be anything like the last 2 preps, like there was no way I could go through that again. I thought, maybe this bodybuilding thing isn't for me, but the more research I did, the more I got used to tracking my macros and got the hang of it, I kind of realized like there was another way to go about it that wasn't so stressful mentally or physically on my body. So I told myself I was going to dial myself into about 12 weeks out, and then I would hire a coach. So I picked out 3 national shows, ended up reaching out to Brandon and Kerrigan because 1, they lived in Houston, so if we ever wanted to meet up, it was convenient, and 2, I just followed Kerrigan for a long time and really loved her content. I loved how muscular she was for a bikini girl because that's kind of what I strive to be, and Brandon had a lot of success in coaching, so I was super confident in them. I say this all the time, that man has changed my world when it comes to just bodybuilding and how I train and how I view food, and just honestly saved me from quitting, because I would have if it would have been anything like the year before. He's taught me probably 90% of what I know, and also just going through it, I've realized prep is hard, but it doesn't have to be as hard as some people make it. Everyone is different, everybody is different, and just to put everything like kind of in retrospect, before I was on 1,200 calories, and this prep I was at 1,700 calories, averaging pretty much the whole prep, barely any cardio, and my body fat got down to like 7.8%, and I took it a lot slower. So, and mentally I was like never hungry, I was full of energy, I could do my physically demanding job without an issue. Just overall, I had such a better experience than I had in the past. The whole show, or the whole prep, I did If It Fits Your Macros, which made a world of a difference. I was always able to mix up my food. I wasn't hungry. I had energy. It was just a complete 180 and extremely eye-opening for me. I was excited about the sport again. I was loving the process. I was gaining strength. It was just, I finally understood and kind of grasped the concept of everything, and it just brought a lot of clarity to me. We went into my first national show, and I ended up placing 3rd in my class, which you had to get top 2 to get your pro cards. So immediately after, we just jumped back into prep, competed at USA's, where I got 1st in my class and got my pro cards. So after that, my season was done. That was at the end of July, and again, the binging and the mental, relationship with food was so much better than before. And even going into a second show, I would have never imagined coming out of a show and then going right back into another prep. But because I was so full the whole time, and because I was able to keep a good variety in my foods, I was able to jump into a second one. After that second show and getting my pro card and not wanting to compete for another year, I kind of lost my why of why I needed to stay on track and why I needed to eat clean, because for me, I could gain 20 pounds and lose it just as easily. So I just didn't have enough reason to prevent that. And it started out great. It started out with a really good reverse diet. We were increasing my calories slowly. I was staying on track. But then I kind of realized that the binging was happening again. I was going through phases where I was eating like a whole pizza and putting on like 15 pounds. That would happen every weekend, and it got into this cycle where I would go through the whole week eating really clean. On the weekend, I would usually have like a binge or 3, and then by Monday, I was up like 15 to 20 pounds. I wasn't hungry. I was literally so swollen. So I would just cut my carbs, cut my fats, and then it would take me about 4 days to get back on track. And then the cycle would happen over again. Also, my mood swings were like at an all-time high. I would be on top of the world one day, and then I'd be in the bathroom crying at the gym, and I really couldn't tell you why. I was just in such a bad headspace, and I was using food as kind of a coping mechanism, but my obsessive thoughts were just consuming me. I use my experience to save other competitors from going through, what I went through, and show you that it doesn't have to be that hard. There is an easier way, but before you get into competing and you get into this world, you should really have a great relationship with food and a great relationship with yourself internally. I think a lot of the reason that it was so hard for me dealing with, the food and the body dysmorphia and stepping on the scale every day is because I've allowed my body to become my identity. And I think about this all the time, if I didn't have bodybuilding, or if I could never work out again, like, who would I be? And honestly, I feel like I wouldn't have, I don't know what my purpose would be. And so I think finding that and realizing that your image isn't everything, and you are a human, you're more than what's on the outside, is really going to help you through the process. Don't get caught up in the hype. Realize what you're getting yourself into and the negative effects it can have on your mental health as well as your physical health. Find yourself a good coach. Just do it because you love the process, because you genuinely want to do it. Don't do it because everyone else is doing it, or the people you look up to and see on social media are doing it. I think mental health is so much more important than physical, and that's something I really instill into my competitors. Is I care about your physical health, but if you're mentally messed up, then we're stopping prep. It's just not worth it, because that is going to carry with you so much longer, and it's so much harder to undo than some of the physical stress you put on your body. So just remember, know your internal identity, and don't let your body define you and who you are as a person, because you're worth so much more than what's on the outside.